present this clinic to you, and I just have to say that what you're going to see has been a whole lot of fun. It's been a lot of work, but we have really enjoyed it. So let's start. Let's introduce you to our school. This is an elementary school. We're going to open the door, and we're going to go by the vacuum cleaner and up the stairs. Here's our band. They're very friendly. And you may notice, hi guys, that we have heterogeneous classes for our beginners. We're also in an elementary school. You hear another band that's on the other side of the curtain on the floor in the cafeteria while they're cleaning after lunch. We have great kids. And this is Annie Buick. She's assistant to Chris Pineda, who's over here. So this is our school, and we're going to tell you a little bit more about them. And we're going to start with Liberty.
So I teach at Liberty Junior High, and you can see some of our stats up there. The population is 635. It's a high percentage of economically disadvantaged. You see the number is 73.8. We're the highest in the district in terms of that percentage. And 37% are at risk of not graduating high school. And so that's kind of the community that we serve. In that Liberty band specifically, there are 3 bands. There's 2 competition bands, and then a 3rd intermediate band. And then we also, this is our 3rd year to have a jazz band. You saw some of the clips of the jazz band, and that's just another avenue to draw some kids. And this year I have 2 bassoon players in the jazz band and 5 French horns, and so it's just kind of a lot of fun to get together with that. And so Liberty has come a long way since we started this process, and I'm looking forward to share that with you today. And so that's Liberty in a nutshell.
Okay, and then this is Apollo. My name is Andrew Week, and I teach at Apollo Junior High, which is the other of the 2 feeder schools that feed into Berkner High School. Our school is slightly more affluent than Liberty is, although not all that different. What's interesting, we have a fewer number of economically disadvantaged kids, but the at-risk number is identical. Actually, ours is slightly higher. We have slightly more kids that they say are in danger of not graduating from high school. And then we have 5 feeder elementary schools. Our elementary schools are, our 6th grade beginning students are still at elementary schools, so we'll talk more about that as we get into it. At Apollo, we have 3 competing bands, and then a 4th band that's about 20 students. And so this is my 4th year teaching at Apollo.
So how many of you teach in middle schools? All right, that's most everybody. We don't have middle schools in Richardson. So our 6th graders, if we want them to start in 6th grade, we have to go to the elementary schools. And so that's just a little bit different for us, and we'll show you a little bit about that in a few minutes. So now Berkner High School. Berkner High School is a recognized school, and you can read about it here, and these are our 2 feeder schools. But also Berkner High School, I think we have some pictures. Do we have pictures right now? Not yet, okay. All right, Berkner High School is, if you've heard of Berkner High School, Frank Trika has been our band director and a marvelous, wonderful leader. We have been 3 times, the last 3 times in the honor band competition in Texas. We've placed 2nd, and 5th. We have been to Midwest. I don't know if any of you heard our concert 3 years ago, but it was a lot of fun, and we were really pleased to be here. And we also have been in the state marching finals pretty regularly. So we have achieved a high sense, a high sense of achievement. Now, this is what our program looks like. The green people are the Berkner High School people. Blue, Apollo, red, Liberty. And then these in the middle, these are the elementaries that we go to every day. And we have, in those 11 elementaries, we have 19 beginner band classes. So the title of our clinic is Let's Wrap Our Brain Around That. And so honestly, since I've been there, I'm the mentor teacher for the Berkner cluster. And this is what we have been wrapping our brain around. How do we get a curriculum? How do we get pedagogy? How do we get everything to line up so that everybody is teaching the same thing the same way? And that's what we've been wrapping our brain around. Wouldn't that, how many of you would like that in your band program? Absolutely. And that's what we've been working for. Now, can you imagine Andrew 5 years younger? And Chris 5 years younger. Chris is a little older than Andrew. That's where we started. And Frank was 5 years younger then too. Not me. All right. Okay, I think we have some. Now, that we have very supportive administration, and that is a tremendous blessing. This is after state marching prelims. There's our superintendent came down to San Antonio. She's in the blue. Our assistant soups, and then our principal, Ron Griffin, is on the right. They all came down to watch the performance and see the kids afterwards. This is Chris's principal. Actually, he's in admin now. But they were doing the clinic at Midwest, and he was instrumental in really making a change. Just so supportive of what Chris was doing. Chris was a second-year teacher when he took over Liberty Junior High. They were making 2s or 3s at contests, and we put this kid in charge of the program. And then we put this kid in charge of the program. So. I'll tell you why we did it. This is why, right here. Because things were really not going where we wanted them to be going, and at this point. But when you bring somebody in, and we were at Liberty, we had an opening, and Chris had been the assistant for 1 year, and you bring somebody in, and they think this is going to be this glorious job, and then it's not. Well, my feeling was we've got to bring somebody in that knows what it is. And they're not going to be surprised by this. They have their eyes wide open. They know exactly what they're getting into. They've seen it, and then they have the vision. And so they're going to talk about that a little bit.
Right, and so as Lynn said, I spent my first year at Liberty as the assistant band director, kind of observing and kind of seeing everything that had been going on. And a lot of it wasn't going as well as it could have. And so when they moved me up to the head director, that was a really daunting task. But I had the perspective of getting to see the program for a year. And I've been had a journal where I was just taking notes of everything that was going on, from, oh, this letter needed to go out 2 weeks sooner, and little things like that. We pass out this music kit here and everything like that. And that was instrumental in able to pace the next year when I became the head director. And so I just had to kind of look and see where the program was, and then where I wanted to go to create my vision. And in a lot of ways, I just looked to the Berkner band because I had the perfect model ahead of me, and I just wanted to make a little miniature Berkner High School at Liberty Junior High. And I was Lynn's student at SMU, and one of the things she always said was that students aren't behind, they just are where they are. And so I had to kind of figure out where the students were and meet them there and move them forward in the direction that I wanted to go. But so I had to create that vision in order to move them forward as we progressed on and getting the kids on board with the process and making them part of the process as we moved forward into the musical journey that we went on. And so that's just kind of how. And I was young and didn't know any better, so I had a lot of fun, and it was great.
So I student taught at Berkner, so I was there for a semester, and then after that there was an opening, and Frank offered me a job, and so I taught at Berkner for 2 years. And so my experience when I went to Apollo was very similar to Chris's. Let's create at Apollo the culture that already exists at Berkner. And there were some kids that could play their instruments that were coming to Berkner from Apollo, but the culture was not aligned with the culture that was at Berkner. And so that was my primary goal when I got to Apollo, was to try to create a culture that would allow the kids to move to Berkner and not have it be this culture shock when they got there. My first year, there was a lot of figuring out what the kids knew, what they didn't know, just helping them connect the dots and just figuring a lot of things out. The first year was a tough one for me, but since then we've just been moving toward that goal of being more like what Berkner is. So our philosophy, number one, these are 3 things that really are the essence of what we're doing when we're trying to create this culture. And the first is that in order to create a plan, we had to believe that we can teach all kids. Now, psychologists talk about there being this spectrum of nature versus nurture. We all exist somewhere on this spectrum about what we believe about kids and what we think. Are we largely a product of our genetic makeup and just were we born how we are, or have we been nurtured and taught, and has it been our life experiences that have shaped and molded us? And probably somewhere along that spectrum is truly where we are, but we all think maybe different things about that. As teachers, we need to live closer to the nurture side of the spectrum, because we have to be able to believe that we can help kids, that we can nurture them and help them to become what it is that we want them to become. And the second we allow ourselves to think, okay, well, they're just not very good. Their embouchure just isn't very good. They're just not very smart. The second we allow those things to creep into our teaching, we begin to become a self-fulfilling prophecy for our students. We don't maybe call on them as much. We don't expect as much out of them. We don't challenge them in the same way. And then all of a sudden, the things that we started to believe, that we believe about the students, becomes a reality for them. And so we have to always believe that they can do it and that we can nurture them and get them to the place that we want them to be.
Okay, and then next, every student has our permission to learn and succeed. And that kind of goes along with what Andrew was saying, is that we have to entitle them the power to learn and give them that confidence and fill in the gaps in what they need to do and believe in them and give them that same permission to learn.
Sorry, I'm sorry about that. That was supposed to be mine, okay? Okay. We've only done this like 10 times, okay? So, but I'm gonna let Chris talk about the next one. But yes, permission to learn is what Andrew just said. That we can accept where they are, and we know that we can take them further. One thing I do want to say about the philosophy thing, there's a lot of philosophy in what we're going to talk about today, and then we're going to do part 2 tomorrow, and that's going to be about our curriculum. That's going to be the nuts and bolts of our curriculum. And a lot of people, they'll say, well, I don't know, I want you to do the curriculum part of it. The other part, I don't know about that. But without this, we could not have succeeded, without these ideals. I mean, I know teachers who put kids, they have a front row and a back row. And you know what I mean by that, right? We're not going to do that. Our goal is to keep every kid that we teach and to give them permission through the way that we work with them to thrive and learn from us and learn from the other students in the class as well. So that's what we mean by that.
And then the last part of our philosophy is that we must commit to do all the work for each and every child. And what that means is that all the things that the children can't do themselves, and taking an ownership and responsibility for all aspects of the program. And this could be things like instruments, committing to making sure that they have the supplies that they need and the resources that they need. It also, especially in the beginning when I was taking over Liberty, there was a little bit of a jaded, the kids have been jaded, and there was a trust issue with adults, and especially with some of the lower demographics. A lot of the kids kind of have a natural resistance to adult figures. And so I had to follow through with everything that I said I was going to do. If I said, I'm going to bring you this music tomorrow, I would have to commit to doing that. Or if I'll bring you the staple and we're going to staple this together, hole punch it. Because I had to commit to doing those things, because I remember the very first time I didn't follow through on that and seeing the look on the child's eyes where I was just another adult that had failed them. And that was very eye-opening to me. And from that point forward, I really had to commit to doing all the work for them that they couldn't do themselves. And that went a long way with trust and just buying in and everything like that.
So it's part of our ideal started with this idea of do you see David? A few years ago, I had a clinician in and he talked about this story about Michelangelo. And Michelangelo had just created the David, and they're in Florence, and he's standing in front of his creation, and a townsperson comes up and says, I mean, it's phenomenal. If you've ever seen it, you know it's just stunning. And said, how did you do this? How did you ever create this? And Michelangelo replied, well, I had this large chunk of marble, and inside it I saw David. And then I simply took away everything that wasn't David. And that really hit home with me. And isn't that what we do as teachers? I mean, there's a trumpet player in that kid somewhere, okay? I mean, all these little hunks of marble walk in your classroom the first day, and your job is to chip away, chip away, until that trumpet player, that flautist, that saxophone player emerges. And that's, they'll call me up and they say, oh, I've been chipping away a lot today. I think they put some back on while I wasn't looking, Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, but that's what we do. And it's baby steps. And sometimes it feels like you'd like to take, make a lot more progress, but it doesn't happen. Let's take a look at some of the kids, that kid right there. We see a David in him. Oh, love that kid, Marvin. And there we are in our cafeterias. We mostly teach in cafeterias. If we're lucky, we have a classroom. There's one of our directors, Steve. This kid is now in the 8th grade, and he doesn't look like that anymore. Here's Andrew. There's Andrew younger. Okay. At Yellow Elementary. Okay. All right.
And before we talk about this, the other thing with chipping away, it just takes a lot of patience in nurturing. Another saying that Lynn has is that she calls them like little cookies. And she's like, oh, that cookie just needs to be baked a little bit longer in the oven, and just give them a little bit more time to let those things sink in. And we really adopt that mindset. And so now our tools. This is another Lynn-ism that she told me as a student of hers, and it's good or bad, whatever is happening in my classroom, I'm somehow giving permission for it. And when I heard it the first time, I thought it was nice. Oh, that sounds nice and everything. But when I finally understood it, that it changed everything. Because as teachers, it's easy to take credit for the things that are going well, and then to dismiss the things that aren't going well, and just, oh, this kid just blah, blah, blah. You can make excuses for everything that's not going well. And when I finally started realizing that, okay, that kid doesn't have a pencil. What am I doing that makes him think it's okay to not have a pencil? Oh, this kid didn't show up to rehearsal. Okay, what am I doing to make him think it's okay to not show up to rehearsal? And looking in the mirror, and that's really hard to do. And so you just have to wrap your brain around the problem and figure out, why am I giving this permission to happen? And that also did a lot with classroom management, because the same thing. And a lot of it, we'll talk about the curriculum later, but a lot of the classroom management issues that I had were related to the curriculum and the sequencing, because usually when students were acting up, it's because I had skipped a step. Because for them, it's easier to act like they don't care than they don't know. And then when I would kind of look in the mirror and fill in the gap, suddenly the classroom management issue corrected itself. Because I was able to take ownership and really figure out why I was giving the permission for the things that I didn't want to happen.
Yeah, these guys are both classic examples of how pedagogy and curriculum take care of all the classroom management problems. We try to do it the other way. First I got to make them behave, then I can teach them. It works the other way. Teach them, they'll behave. That's what we believe, and I invite any of you to ever come and look at their classrooms. They're amazing. Just for example, what he's saying about permission for it. How many of you have kids that don't show up for concerts? Sure. Yep, it happens all. My first concert, I was horrified. I can even remember the name of the kid, and that was in 1970. Okay. Chris had a concert on Monday night. How many beginners? 130? 130 beginners. How many didn't show up?
One.
And in our community, at the first concert you had ever at Liberty, 1/3 of the kids didn't show up. Is that right?
At least.
Right. So somehow he's given permission for those parents and kids to get there. That's what he's done with the community, and it's a wonderful thing. The second one is, when I make a decision about what I'm going to say to a kid, I always think of this. If this were my kid, what would I want the teacher to say to them? All right, they need to be held accountable. How do I want the teacher to say that to them? You know, that's my filter for reacting the right way. Our world can get very emotional, very fast. And so I think this is a really good way to approach what you're going to say. And also, I'm really against emailing. Okay, I just thought I'd throw that in there. Okay. Especially when you're mad. I'm not against emailing altogether, but I'm saying as a response, you know, pick the phone up. Wait, calm down, pick the phone up and call them back. Don't email them, right?
And then our third Lynism here is teach music as a fine art. And to us, what that means is that we're always behaving like musicians in front of our students at all levels, whether it's 6th grade or 8th grade or the high school students. We're just always acting like musicians in front of them. We use the vocabulary of music, so we don't call it a bird's eye, it's a fermata. And the kids learn that early on. And they learn that it's Italian, and we say it with our Italian accents and have lots of fun with it, but they learn the words early on. They learn what enharmonics mean, all those different things. Whenever we have an opportunity to share with them the language of music, we take a moment and help them to learn what that language is. And then we also just have a respect for whatever music it is that we're playing, whether it's a grade 4 piece of music with 8th graders or a 3 piece of music with 8th graders, or hot cross buns. You know, to those kids, that is the height of their musical experience on their instrument up to that point, and we treat it as such. So,
but the most important rule that we have is that there is no substitute for being a great teacher. That is what, I mean, that's what we all have to strive to be. We can be nice, the kids can like us, we can throw pizza parties, we can be funny, we can have lots of fun, but in the end, it is honestly the quality of our teaching that really matters. And I think all those other things are great, but be a great teacher. Become an inspired teacher, and you will be inspiring. Now, and it's hard to stay inspired. I do want to say, one of the reasons we stay inspired is because we have each other. And you've got to have people that you can talk to and be with that keep you lifted up. This is one of the people right here. This is my mentor, Claire Johnson. She's 84 years old. Now I want you to look how she stands. You notice I'm sitting today because I can barely stand right now. But